Welcome new and old friends. My name is 242, and today 42 got us 2 stories. I'd like to also give you a friendly reminder that you can submit your stories to me at the email 242reads@gmail.com. That will also be in the description. Now, turn off your lights, make sure your doors and windows are locked. Things are about to get spooky. All of us sat completely quiet, trying to hide from the blind monsters. Well, it turns out when things get really quiet, even the sound of blood flow in our bodies is loud enough. Do not respond to a message on suspicious websites, no matter how trivial. By DannyBoy1. It all started when I was looking for a game I had loved as a child. I didn't want to buy it because I'm broke, and emulation is too easy to pass up. However, a big problem arises in getting a ROM of this shit in the first place. It looks extremely easy when you look up the game, but most of the ROMs are broken or you can't be extracting with an unknown password. So I went through pages and pages of websites until I would find a damn ROM of this thing. I had finally found a site that had it. It was like most ROM sites, shit ton of obnoxious pop-ups and non-subtle lewd ads. I hit the download button and waited for it to finally download to see if it was legit. I live in a somewhat secluded area in the woods. Nearest neighbor is about a quarter mile away, so the Wi-Fi isn't that good. So suffice to say, I had to wait a while. While waiting on the site, a pop-up message caught my attention, more so than others. Hey, do you want to get a ligama? Honestly, this caught me off guard. It made me laugh my ass off, more than I would like to admit. I noticed that I had the option to respond to this message, which was kind of strange considering the stuff like this usually just a virus or malware posing as a pop-up. I decided to respond and humor both myself and the person who sent the message. Depends. What is legma? I chuckled to myself as I awaited a response. I got one not 15 seconds after I had sent my response. Getting excited, I checked his message and read his response. You will learn tonight, winky face. I thought to myself, what the fuck? This himself made no sense. I was either expecting no response or the typical let me balls joke. Not this. As I was thinking this out, my download had finished, so that had quickly slipped my mind as I anticipated to play one of my favorite games again. I booted up the game, and to my frustration/disappointment, it didn't work. After a few minutes of yelling explicitives and throwing various items in my room, I laid down in my bed, exhausted after looking for this game all day. I had forgotten about the weird chat experience and closed my eyes and fell peacefully asleep. I soon dreamed that I was on an island, secluded from all the ugliness in the world. In the center of my dream was a woman named Tessa. Tessa was beautiful. She looked like an angel from the sky. It was strange. She never said her name, but I had just known it as soon as I saw her, even though I had never talked to her. I began making my advances towards her, walking with a hand out, trying to grasp her. It seemed she did the same. However, a thunderbolt struck right between us, right when we were going to touch. Then the island split in half and we drifted away. However, it was not only mental pain I felt, as we drifted further apart from each other. I felt more and more excruciating physical pain. It was like getting kicked in the balls over and over again. I let out a yell of pain, then I woke up to the morning sun. I woke up and felt a bit odd. I didn't know anything for sure, but something was just off. I went for a scratch of my area, and that's when I noticed it. My ball was taken, not both, just one. It was done perfectly too, with sewing on the edge as if a licensed surgeon had taken it. Obviously, I let out a scream in horror, but then I immediately tried to find out what fucker would do this. Then it hit me, the chat logs. He said tonight, "There's no way these two events are not connected." I ran to my computer, and to my dismay, the site I was on was no longer there, and neither was the faulty ROM I downloaded. I ran downstairs and saw everything. My window was broken, and right near the window was the break-in method, a medicine ball engulfed in glass. Under it was a note attached. You should have responded to that message in return for the game, which I tucked safely in your mailbox. I have taken your very dear testicles. P.S. Ligma balls. I was shedding tears. All of this bullshit because I responded to a Ligma joke. I began to slowly move towards a mailbox to get my copy of Super Monkey Ball. Moral of the story: don't respond to these stupid messages, or any messages, on a fishy website, no matter how stupid it seems. We saw them as gods that came from above, feared them, worshipped them, and were betrayed by them. But it took me just one bite to understand why they were slaughtering us. The Church in the Woods by Blake Blizzard. My name is Bo Leaf. I'm an investigative journalist. This is the story that broke me. It broke me into the world of pop culture, and broke me as in stripping my humanity. My story became something of a phenomenon in YouTube's scary story lore. It was my first story that caught the attention of the mainstream. It was also my last. The story reads as a fantastic version of a tired haunted house story. I was surprised at the success due to the fact that it was so hard to believe. I wrote it as it happened, edited my story, and had doubt that anyone would like it because it was real. Any Hollywood team of writers would kill to have a story like this. They could never come up with what I've seen. This wouldn't fit any script that had been produced so far. Like any good story, I'll start at the beginning. Try to follow me. I wanted to be a police officer since I was a child. I can't really say why. Yes, I wanted to help people. This is at the core of most police hopefuls. Not all, I know, but most. I wanted to be a cop because of Batman. The Dark Knight that's been in the American pop culture since the 1940s. He was cool. He had the ultimate set of gadgets, and he helped the police. I knew at a young age that this was fantasy. I couldn't be Batman, but I could be one of his partners. No, not his butler, or one of his questionable young boy servants. I could be Commissioner Gordon. I could be one of the law enforcement guys Batman helped. The law works within the rules. Batman didn't have to. Back to real life. I worked 5 hard years in a county jail, with no chance of getting to do any kind of actual patrol. I wanted to get outside. Eventually, I found an opportunity in a nearby city to where I worked. Thankfully, I got my dream job as a patrolman. I would follow the footsteps of the American police officer, taking calls and serving the community, serving and protecting. I was on my way to promoting to the commissioner. A strange church in my urban community derailed my life. Day 2 of my field training program introduced me to the Cashier Church. I was being shown around my new city when my FTO, field training officer, asked if I had ever heard of this church on Old Homestead Road. Of course not. I had no idea. I wasn't a resident of the city. I lived nearby, but I had no reason to drive through. This was the rough area, but I liked it. My years inside the jail prepared me for the streets. I felt I needed to be in the action, like most young cops. My FTO drove me to the church. It was like an oasis of gold and hope inside a landscape of depression and destruction. Just a block west, we had Kelly Road, littered with liquor stores and cash for gold type stores. On Old Homestead Road, we had a glorious display of trees, green grass, and a sprawling church that spanned more than 10 house lots. A fence covered the church, but you could see several mysterious structures beyond the trees. There was a display of buildings that looked like the Red Square in Moscow. This was a Russian church after all. A lot of powerful people went to this church. This church in the middle of a run-down urban area in Midwest America. And that was that. I never thought about it for a year. I did okay with the police, but knew it wasn't my true calling. I left to pursue writing. Sorry, Batman. I write for several online newspapers. I write for whoever will take my stories. Public interest to crime reports. This got real old real fast. I was racking my tired brain to try to find the story that was not only interesting to me, but would jump me ahead in the stratosphere of journalism. I was also racking up debt. Takes a unique story for writers these days. I wanted to put my investigative skills to the test and try to get paid for my skills at the same time. One night while driving down Hollywood Boulevard, my new home, I glanced at the Celebrity Scientology Center. The proverbial light bulb shattered over my head. I would go back to that Russian church in the middle of America to see what goes on, if anything. I always knew something was off about that church. First time I saw it, I knew. It was hiding a secret. Being back in the Midwest was a breath of fresh air. No more smog, no more awful traffic, no more fake people. The Midwest is overall friendly, even the more unsavory places. After catching up with my family and friends, having a good couple of nights out, acting like I was back in college, I finally retired to my hotel. I will be here temporarily until I secure a better housing situation. Right now, I'm actually not that concerned about my living situation. I banked a decent amount of coin for my freelance work. I have a great support in my home state to help me with transportation and small stuff I may need, like groceries. Midwest folks are the mid-best. Plus, the Wi-Fi here is banging. I have no worries about getting this story out as fast as possible. A few days later, after some careful networking, I finally found a contact that could get me in to see Father John, the leader of the Church in the Woods. I was set to meet him at noon tomorrow. I have to post his email verbatim. I know this isn't ethical to do by journalism standards because I don't have his permission, but if I don't make it back, I need someone to see this. Father John sent me this. Dear Mr. Leaf, thank you for your interest in my humble church. I would be more than happy to show you our glorious parish. I will list the date and time at the end of this email. I just ask that you respect and follow the following rules. I have no doubt that a journalist of your integrity will be able to follow my requests. Hope they find you agreeable, and I'm looking forward to our meeting. Number 1. No recording devices. This should go without saying. I have no issue with you writing about our church, but for security of myself and our parishioners, I ask there are no phones or recording devices. Number 2. Follow the instructions of myself, my staff, and whomever else shows themselves to you. This is somewhat of a catch-all to keep you focused on both of our missions. Number 3. If a bell tolls thrice, please exit the area immediately and return to the lawn in front of the most recent door you have entered. Myself or one of my staff members will bring you back in when it's safe. Number 4. This isn't as much of a request as a warning. We may not have what you think of as a traditional art and sculptures that the mainstream Christian church has. Do not stare too long, and do not disturb if they slightly change during your stay. As I've said, this is a unique church. Number 5. Mind the caretaker. As I read the email from Father John, I wasn't concerned or put off at all. I had seen a lot of strange things. I have written about even stranger. But that last rule made me sit up in my cheap recliner in my hotel room. Every rule somewhat explained itself. The last rule was simple. Mind the caretaker. No explanation, no further instruction on what minding the caretaker meant. The end of the email stated the meeting time would be 2:30 in the morning one day from when Father John sent it. Current day is Thursday. That means I would be there in the early mornings of Friday the 13th at 2:30 a.m. It is fall. The sun disappears around 5 p.m. in these places. It'd be well pitch black at almost 3 in the morning. Why would a father of a Christian church grant me an interview and a walk around at this time? 3 a.m. in the Catholic/Christian faith is not a good time. This is the notorious witching hour, the only time of night openly mocking the death of Jesus, who was killed on the crucifix at 3 p.m. The devil and his demons are supposedly able to walk the earthly realm and contact the living at 3 a.m. to openly terrify Jesus' followers. I was so deep into the story, I had no intention on putting the brakes on. I was invested. This could be the story that finally breaks me into the Pulitzer-winning world. I knew this would be putting me into a risky place, but you have to break some eggs to make an omelet, right? I replied to Father John, "I'll be there," is all I said. I packed my bags. I had plenty of batteries for my recorder. I had a pad of paper, pens, and a hidden cross I didn't want him to see, for some reason. I was shamefully nervous of speaking to this man of God. If anything, I was also scared of this hidden caretaker. The setting. I pull up to the church in the woods in my lift. I grab my bag out of the back and start to thank the driver, but I end up thanking a speeding away car. Just a job for this dude, he was out. The Midwest is usually known for friendly people, as I've said. From my experience on the West Coast, this couldn't be truer. But I momentarily forgot I wasn't in the friendliest part of the Midwest. All that aside, I was now staring at this stunning structure that looked like it was built in the Renaissance era. It doesn't look like it belonged in the middle of a run-down inner city. The walls were huge. They were lightly covering almost every tree in sight. Beyond the fence stretched multiple towers. The ones that have what look like Hershey Kisses on top, like that iconic red square. There was an open gate. I cautiously made my way through. No codes, no locked doors. The voice of God boomed above me. "Mr. Leaf, I presume? Come on in, my friend. The door is open." My heart leaped out of my throat. Looking up, I sheepishly identified a little speaker where the voice came from. Father John, I suspected. A little relieved, I grabbed my bag and walked through. The floor was magnificent marble. The columns were of the same. The ceiling looked like it was gold-plated. What is this place? Dead silence greeted me, save for the echo of every step I took throughout the massive hall. A door could be heard slowly opening, with another set of footsteps approaching. I looked ahead to where I assumed Mass or service took place, and saw a man. I expected a 7-foot Russian man in old Pedrid-type garb. Long brown robes with a rope acting as some kind of belt. I imagined the priest swinging one of those little lanterns that smoke came out of. What I saw was a man smaller than I, in a perfectly normal blue suit. "Bo," he spoke. I tried to catch my words before they came out, but what I think I said sounds something like, hi." Father John laughed, a hearty laugh that didn't match his appearance. He reached a hand out in my direction, and I sheepishly shook it. "It's okay, my friend. I understand on first sights this place can be intimidating. Please, relax. Let me show you around." I laughed and followed him to the main hall. "Thank you for seeing me. I am grateful for this interview." Father John sat down on one of the pews and motioned me to sit. "My pleasure, Bo. Can I call you Bo?" "Of course," I told him. He then went on to briefly summarize his history of owning the property and how his congregation came to find a home here. I sat in silence, writing a few notes down here and there. Even though I brought a recorder, I did not use it per one of the rules I was sent by him. I thought they were kinda silly, but something told me to obey them, now that I was here in his presence. As I was listening to him and asking questions, I swear I was seeing movement in the corner of my eyes. Distracted, I was caught in mid-sentence trying to ask a simple question of the father. He stopped me. "Yes, this is a different kind of church, my son." I pulled my open mouth to a close. I didn't mean to be rude. Father waved a hand dismissively. "It's okay, Bo. I wanted you to be here. You are among friends." A wave of heat started to rise from my stomach. "Sir, may I use the restroom before we continue?" I asked, needing to take a break and regroup. I felt an immediate need to get away for a moment and splash some water on my face. Father John smiled and pointed to our right. "Right that way, Bo. Take all the time you need." I'll never forget the facial expression that stared at me. A slight upturned smile from one side of Father John's face. Looking into the mirror, I berated myself for losing my composure. It's just a normal church. albeit in a strange location. Just get the story and get back to the hotel. I think I already got most of the story I needed. I washed my hands and threw away the paper hand towel I used and exited the bathroom door. What I saw confused me beyond belief. The main hall looked the same, but now bathed in an unsettling red glow, like the light bulbs have all been changed with red ones. A thin layer of smoke coated the ground. Till this day, I'm unsure if I imagined this, or if it was truly real. I could not find my way back to the room I was sitting in with the father. I called out quietly at first, then raised my voice to a shaky yell. No reply from Father John, or any other human. A stairway led up above me. Not thinking straight, I took it. There were maybe 50 steps if I had to guess, but it felt like I was climbing a mountain. The air was getting thin, the elevation was noticeable. When I arrived at the second floor, I had to actually stop and catch my breath. I wasn't in bad shape, but I felt like I had just hiked an intermediate mountain trail. There was only one door in front of me. It was guarded by bars and chains. What the hell was I looking at? I tried to find a window to the outside world to make sure I was not dreaming or losing my mind. No windows, just brick and dirt on the ground? None of this makes sense. A huge bang greeted me from behind the door. I told you to mind the caretaker. A deep voice boomed overhead. I almost fell on my ass from the shock. What? Hello? I yelled in an embarrassing higher tone of voice I would have liked. He's going to come out now. I scrambled to find the stairs, which seems to have disappeared completely. I felt like Shaggy and Scooby when they do that run-in-place thing when they get scared. Who is coming? What is this? Why is this happening? I didn't want to find out. I somehow spotted a stairway leading down to the first floor. When I finally reached the landing, I was met with one long hallway. Doors appeared on either side for what looked like over a mile. Footsteps were following me down those stairs. Chains were dragging. Visions of murder and blood entered my fragile mind. Thoroughly terrified and panicked, I shamefully collapsed. I didn't lose consciousness, but I could not move. The steps were coming closer. The caretaker was going to take me. For what reason? I do not know. At that moment, a church bell tolled 3 times. This sound shook the foundation and my mind. With a new zest inquired, I popped up to my feet and picked a random direction and sprinted. Everything went dark. I saw flashes of gremlins, goblins, and statues that definitely did not belong in a Catholic church. The darkness lifted. Seconds before a wooden door appeared, I was still going full speed. I crashed through the door, tumbling to the outside world. I was on the front lawn of the church. I felt my brow. A warm liquid coated my fingers. Just a little blood, thankfully. The rules stated that if the bell tolls thrice, go outside and wait for Father John or staff to come and retrieve you to go back inside. Not a freaking chance, I thought. I didn't have my phone or the bag I brought, but I could care less. I left that place like my life depended on it. Luckily, I did have my wallet and my ID. I I didn't have my hotel key, it was in my bag for some dumb reason, but the clerk knew I had taken a room out there just the night before. My laptop was still in my room, small victory there. I'm writing this now to warn anyone that's listening. Do not check this place out. This isn't a joke story. This isn't some lame attempt to gain followers or get views. The church in the woods does not need more attention. The father closed the storybook and he vanished from existence. The father read the final sentence in a dread-filled stammer, tearfully looking at his petrified daughter as he struggled to stop his hands from shutting the book. I do hope you enjoyed these 2 stories this evening, my friends. Remember to hit that like button and make sure it feels it. If you're new, subscribe and turn that pretty little bell to all notifications. If you'd like to help this channel/podcast, share it with anyone you think who might enjoy it. It really does help. If you'd like to help in other ways, I have a Patreon, merch, and PayPal. I also have opened a website if you'd like to check that out as well, where it has all my links to everything about me, including my socials and all that jazz. And of course, I love a comment, but I gotta get you that Sunday word first. Now onto our Sunday word, and our word 3 weeks ago was facility. On screen are all the entries I got. Thank you everyone, and thank you for waiting this long. Picture will be also up on Twitter if you'd like to see if you're on the podcast. This week's word though is approval. APPROVAL. Which means the action of approving something, or the belief that someone or someone is good or acceptable. So, if you're on YouTube, write me a comment down below. If you're on the podcast, go to my Twitter, 242reads, and write me a comment down there. Make sure you at me. But as always, guys, thank you for listening and watching, and I'm just really happy you're all here. Sleep tight, and don't let 42 bite.